This is Dan Dix here, reporting for Press for Truth. Justin Trudeau went to China and back, and all we really got out of this was a plan for global enslavement. Now, for the corporate state media, Trudeau was just talking positively about free trade and so-called human rights, and he even coached a little kid's basketball game. Isn't that cute? Now, he wasn't alone. All of the world's leaders did meet in China this past week for the G20 summit. But unlike Bilderberg, the G20 is public, and it features world leaders, many of whom are just complete puppets. Their job, essentially, is to sell the masses on the reality of this global fascist empire. That's why they use words like free trade or human rights. And like any good Orwellian society, definitions are always hijacked to become some new meaning that's completely opposite of what it's originally intended to mean. So if giving corporate state elites the power to write down their own commercial and regulatory laws, while strangling free market entrepreneurship and undermining families and local communities, if that's free trade, well then you can call up, down. Or add 1 and 1 and make 3. Free trade is unrestricted movement of goods and services among people. That's it. Having free trade is essentially having a free market, but they've literally reversed the definition of the term. You see, these world leaders are not talking about free trade. They're actually talking about the exact opposite. It's like a thief who tries to convince you that he's stealing from you for your own good. Now, at least the G20 admits now that they do debase their currencies in order to promote this so-called economic growth. I mean, what was once an act of war is now just standard monetary policy. But with the internet awakening and the rise of independent media, the secret of money is out. The genie has left that bottle. Bankers really are screwing us over. And no matter how deep or wide you think this conspiracy goes, the one thing I think we can all agree on here is that bankers are screwing us over. I mean, you'd have to go through some serious, endless mental gymnastics in order to not think so. And we're not just getting screwed as taxpayers and bank customers, but fascism corrupts the very core of society. The G20 is just selling us on this idea that global slavery actually means free trade, and that modern serfdom is what amounts to human rights. Trudeau's plea for reckless and endless government spending, which he calls stimulus, just fell on deaf ears. And as for the China-dominated Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank, it's that global bank without any American dollar influence or participation, Canada announced that it's going to join the bank, adding to the roster of other Western nations like Britain and France and Germany and Australia. Now, while he was in China, Canada's PC principal earned the nickname Little Potato. Turns out the word Trudeau sounds a lot like the Mandarin word for potato. But of course, Trudeau also has a goofy looking face that actually resembles a potato somewhat, which is also, in fact, what his brain consists of, albeit it's in mashed form. So the Trudeau Little Potato name actually works on multiple levels. Now, of course, getting called a little potato and getting asked hard questions on a Chinese talk show was probably not a part of the plan. There was a popular Chinese talk show that asked Trudeau about First Nations issues, which later got pulled off the air. The talk show host was accusing Destination Canada, the Crown corporation that's promoting Canadian tourism abroad, of trying to censor Aboriginal issues. And then after that, Trudeau gave a speech in Hong Kong lambasting China's dismal rate on human rights. But once again, human rights are arbitrarily defined by the state. I mean, are there really absolute human rights universal in all times and places? What good is some metaphysical right if you're working in a Chinese sweatshop, for example? The only rights are private property rights. I mean, even animals understand this. Just try invading a skunk's personal space, or watch two birds fight over a nest, or wait and see what happens when trees are cut down by beavers and they're molded and shaped into river dams. Well, we too manipulate our environment in order to create shelter and to create civilizations. And it's a respect for private property and mutual exchange that led us from the Dark Ages to this capital-intensive technological world that we have today. But the state rests on undermining private property. They tax it, they confiscate it and destroy it, and use it as they please with absolutely no regard to future generations. They consume capital, leaving everyone poorer. They're the ones talking about human rights, but the only right that is demonstrable here is private property. But since they've corrupted the definitions to property and free markets, and since they've confused what it means to have rights, well, the idea of so-called human rights is championed, despite the fact that it has a very empty meaning. You know, the state writes on pieces of paper and just calls it a charter or bills and freedoms and rights. But that's not where our freedoms come from. Freedom is inherent in us as human beings. It's a gift from our Creator. The state can really only take away our freedom, not grant it. And that's precisely what the G20 is all about. Nothing more and nothing less. Guys, be sure to fact check all of this information yourself by checking the source links in the description of this video. And also be sure to support independent media by becoming a PFD patron and contributing there, or you can donate to help us continue to spread this message. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, guys. We've got more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth. One statement on Bilderberg.
Where'd you go? Your father, man. I'm not here to talk about Bilderberg. No.
Can I get you?
Well, looks like he doesn't necessarily want to answer any questions about Bilderberg. Apparently, this is neither the time nor the place. But really, I think this is exactly the time and the place for a question like that.